So let's jump into this first story because OnlyFans is a really interesting. Look, I got to admit, when I thought of OnlyFans, I had prior to doing this research the completely wrong idea, actually, of what. Not completely wrong, but I was certainly surprised by what I saw. And I'm going to get your take in a minute, but I'll just tee this up a little bit for the audience as to partly why we're doing this, because I think it's culturally relevant at the moment, and it helps us sort of older generation understand the younger generation a little bit more. But there's no doubt the world is changing. This story that came out this week with Iggy Azalea, who is the Australian rapper, she had that one big hit. I'm not going to attempt to sing it, but it was real catchy, something about being a boss or something. She went on to OnlyFans and it reportedly earned $48 million on OnlyFans in her first 12 months on the platform, which is pretty staggering. So we had a look at that article, and we then jumped over and had a look at another article, Greg, that you might bring up quickly, which was on Business Insider. And we were just trying to do a little digging to find out how big is this OnlyFans platform today. And as you can see here, OnlyFans users spent more than $5 billion last year as the number of creators surged 47% in a year, 47% in a single year, which is pretty insane numbers for any business at all. And it's up. What's the number of creators was 3.2 million in 2022, up to 3.2 million in 2022, up from 2.2 in 2021. So a massive, massive increase in this business. So, boys, I'm going to get your feedback. Just a couple more things I want to mention. What we found really interesting is that this now is a legitimate industry. Like, we Googled OnlyFans agencies because this talent, most of the talent that's doing well now actually has representation. They have agencies that are running their OnlyFans for them, all the back end stuff. And there's this whole industry of what we call chatters. And I'll just tell you a little bit about what chatters are. So chatters, for those of you watching, are people that engage in the messages, the direct messages that the girls or the guys have on the platform. And so this is where a lot of the money is made, is in the back and forward, in the chatting. And so there's whole agencies that manage all that chatting and all of that stuff, which is really, really interesting. We're also going to dive into, in this section, the dark side of this as well, which is quite concerning. So we, of course, wanted to buy local, so we jumped into OnlyFans and subscribed to Iggy Azalea's OnlyFans. We'll show you around there in a minute. But what were your first impressions, guys, when you jumped into OnlyFans for the first time and had a look around? What was your first take on what you saw?
Yeah, look, it was, a relatively simple platform to use and navigate around. Could understand it was very crisp and clear. And I think that's one of the selling points with any SaaS is how easy is it to use. And from a buyer's perspective, and I'm sure it's not too hard from a content creator's perspective either. But as we've all just discussed this morning, one thing they've got blocked in there, which was rather alarming, is there's no search function at all. So you can't go and search for any individual account and have it show up. Like we tried to search Tiger, a few of the larger name accounts, nothing came up, which is a bit perplexing to think, okay. And the reason for that, if you dig a little deeper, about content sensitivity, discretion, etc., and the user choice. So this dovetails into the agency model as well, is because this is all private promotion. In other words, the platform will not spit you up at the top of the algorithm. If you want to get promoted on here, you've got to have a content strategy of your own and bring in the traffic from external sources. So in one way, it's quite smart. As we can't search. If you want to know of a creator, they've got to do that by their own marketing skill sets.
Instagram and everything else they're doing out there.
Those agencies, Chatter obviously the lowest common denominator, but the clearest, whoever's got the best marketing model will win. And to that point, we're at the boxing the other night with a friend, I won't mention names, and their son is actually started one of his own agencies. They're pulling 30 to 40 grand a week as 20-year-old kids to us, promoting OnlyFans talent. And as we worked out now, I'm just looking at this now, it's not doing their internal chatter, it's not doing their internal some of it's how to talk to camera, but it's how they're driving traffic to that creator's profile, which I found quite interesting. And here's the reasoning why. There's no internal promotion.
But the chatting is a huge part of it, right? Like
Sure.
actually engaging and selling the other things that the girls have. And in a minute, we'll bring it up. For me, one of the things that really struck me was when I signed up for Iggy Azalea's account, I actually had her Instagram open on my phone, and of course OnlyFans open on the computer, and the content that was available for the $25 I think it was a month, was very much the same. Iggy is not, she literally says, in fact, Greg, have you got it open there? If you go, I don't know if we can show this, but it actually says in her chat, when you go to the chat, it basically says that, I don't do full nudes, I don't show particular things. So it's kind of got the rules at the start there, right? There it is there. That, the stuff that you're looking for is in the DMs, but I'm not going to publish anything on here more than just boobs and bums, basically. And if you want more than that, you got to hit me up in the DMs. So really, people are paying, in her case, $25 a month just for the opportunity to get in the DMs. And that's where I imagine the chatters kick in, which are sort of like farms of, like if you go to Fiverr.com, which is a sort of an outsourcing website that does stuff like, YouTube thumbnails. It's like an Upwork, or it's a site for all kinds of little digital jobs. There's a whole section dedicated, as you can see here, to if you want to get OnlyFans chatters, people to manage your DMs and chat in OnlyFans. So it was quite interesting that they're not really showing anything, a lot of these girls, in that area.
It's wild. Like everyone's heard the OnlyFans joke or the punchline of the joke, and someone uses OnlyFans, and you expect to go on there and just see all this nudity and whatever. But there's ladies doing cooking classes, and there's all kinds of like interesting things that are showing up in the feeds. But yeah, it's like a distribution platform.
Well, that's what got my attention as well. Like when I was reading about Iggy and why she jumped on, I saw an article that she was saying, look, I had a misconception about OnlyFans, and it's a place where I can actually do creative work, and and I'm like, really? Like, isn't it just straight porn? But when you go into the main feed, which is full of OnlyFans created content, they have podcasts, they have cooking shows, they have long form content where the OnlyFans stars, like the cooking shows on there, are arguably quite similar to like MasterChef in terms of quality. They're not that far off, except all the stars are OnlyFans creators. And then underneath the show, it's got links to their accounts. And I found this part fascinating because unlike like our generation, if you wanted that kind of content, there was just porn, right? Like you go to a website and it's straight into it, Whereas here, they're actually in many ways humanizing and not objectifying the talent. Yep. You're getting to know these girls and guys through content that we're normally seeing on mainstream media. So you're watching a porn star cook pumpkin muffins, and it's interesting because you don't see that side of them normally. And in many ways, I thought, this is actually maybe a lot healthier because they're not objectifying the talent in the way that the generation before. And I can see why, if you've just watched a piece of content that the brain is thinking, this is MasterChef, but now the chick is texting me in the DMs and offering me other things, how compelling that is, especially to somebody lonely. And it's kind of interesting. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that. But what did you feel, Eric, when you looked at that yourself? Did you have any thoughts on that?
Like when I was first searching in OnlyFans, I just couldn't believe, again, the videos of them, cooking and different things. And honestly, I've learned now to make a shit hot gingerbread house. And I just want to thank Mercedes for that, honestly. But to be honest, now I know why a lot of them promote on other channels like Instagram and other social platforms, because you can't actually search them, like James said. And I was driving on the M1, this is a few weeks ago, coming back down to watch the Tim Zoo fight on the Gold Coast. And I seen this bright yellow Dodge Ram. And the first thing I thought of, I'm like, who the hell would drive a bright yellow Dodge Ram? and the license plate was rammed. Then as I drove up closer to the Dodge Ram, on the side of the Dodge Ram said, "Watch me get rammed," and a QR code, OnlyFans.
No
So
way.
obviously it's an OnlyFans creator that's driving this thing, and it's a very unique way of promoting, right? Because again, if you know who they are, you can't just go there and search them. You know, you'll have to go through their Instagram, and you know, this is what I show on Instagram, as a lot of them say, because I know a couple of them. A couple of them are, you know, acquaintances, as an example, that are on OnlyFans, and on their Instagram, they have their Instagram, but then they have links going, you know, if you want to see more racy content, click here, and then takes them to the OnlyFans. And I guess that's one of the ways that they'll.
It's the emotional connection, right? Because it's social media. So you are socializing on Instagram and you know this person, which brings a completely different, well, you feel like you know this person. It brings a completely different layer of intimacy to the content.
Funny you talked about the amount of creators and what they call not safe for work. In other words, the tits and ass sort of model is that 70% of the creators are NSFW, as they call it, which leaves 30% who are not. And I believe that number from the stats I was looking at is increasing. So, you know, when OnlyFans came out, and yes, sex sells, they cornered the market with you know, the pornography, if you will, or a lighter version of it. They're now certainly leaning into the non-porn version, or the safe for work environment as well. So that market's growing. So well done to them.
Yeah.
Because that's 30% is not in the sneeze at. And again, if you have that Instagram, you know, semi-personal touch to it, to them, you know, reacting to your stuff, and you can buy DMs and give them tips and whatnot, it's going to become a big playground for the non-porn side of it as well.
It seems like there was a big push to clean it up in 2021. They had pressure from outside investors or bankers to try and clean it up. I mean, I don't know the stats behind this, but I would imagine on sites like Pornhub or whatever else that the owners of the site are making all the profit from the people spending time on the website. But just seeing the way OnlyFans works, it was like they could upsell you a photo for $5, or they could upsell you a subscription for $25. So it seems like it's, you know, I guess it's rewarding the creator for putting themselves out there, and I guess that's got to be positive in a way as well.
Yeah, I mean that was my experience. We all subscribed to these because when you go into OnlyFans, and Greg will throw some B-roll here, I'm sure, over the top of inside the platform. We have to blur some of it out because particularly the paid content, because you have to pay and we have to respect the artist for that. But when you go to a free subscription, what was really interesting was almost immediately that you subscribe. I don't know if you guys had this experience, you get a DM from the creator. Now, it's very much probably not the creator. Yeah. It's a team that are working in behind an agency, and I believe the agency splits range from 50 to 70% going to the agency.
Oh wow! Okay.
But they're running all that and not the bots, but all the people that are engaging, I assume probably mostly men, in dialogue and conversation, and upselling them into photos and videos and personalized videos and all these things. But the immediate moment that I opted in, you see in the DMs, hey, thanks for subscribing, click here to see a photo, $6, or, you know, you've got some of them up here. What was your experience? Was it the same with the 68 people that you subscribed to, Mark?
I just thought this is pretty wild. Like it just seems like a massive industry is building around this. But you know, I question if it's the best way for young men to be spending their time. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But yeah, it was pretty wild. I had no idea that it was so monetized and so systematic like it was. But I guess that's where those big numbers are coming from.
Yeah, it's a business. I mean, you can't really. I mean, what are your thoughts on it for the girls? Like that, it's pretty hard to put that genie back in the bottle when you can go work at Woolies for $20 an hour, or you can do OnlyFans and make $20 a second.
I bumped into my old landlord and I said, "Oh, how's things going? Have you got a new tenant and whatever?" He's going, "Oh yeah, just got a new girl and she does OnlyFans." I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." She's like, "Yeah, as long as she pays the bills." Like I think it's becoming more socially acceptable as well.
Yeah, not only that, it's the secondary market that's created as well with the chatters, but also with these agencies. I mean, who would have thought you got professional agencies, and as we said, to quote back to our mate's son, he's pulling 30, 40 grand a week as an agency. Working online, they've got 2 staff. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's freight. That's $2 million a year they're pulling out of that thing. They reckon they can maximise it to $100,000 a week.
They have teams of chatters though that they manage.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
the chatters are trained in, and this is kind of where it gets a little bit grey, and it might be a good moment just to have a look at this, the dark side of this before we sort of deconstruct. And I'm going to ask you some questions you might want to think about. One of them is going to be, would you date an OnlyFans girl? Or what would you do if you found out your partner was on OnlyFans? We'll come back to your thoughts on that in a minute. At some point in the past, I have my answer because my wife asked me this question. Because during the week I said to the boys, "Here's the OnlyFans login. I would recommend that you let your wives know before you jump in. James doesn't have to worry about that. Remember, girls, if you're single and looking for somebody good, James is available.
And we'll have an OnlyFans channel very shortly. You've
got to advertise.
Pay to play.
You got to advertise. That I said to the boys, get clearance on your wife. But my wife did actually ask me that question, like, what if I told you that I used to have an OnlyFans? No, she didn't. But what and I'll tell you the answer to that after we watch this clip, because I want to, it's very easy, I think, to sometimes take it lightly, but like all these things, when you attract a lot of money into a space, you attract all kinds, and of course, the most high profile of all of them when it comes to girls on cams in recent times is none other than Andrew Tate. And this isn't that long ago. I was surprised because I thought this clip, I knew Andrew had a very dark past, and I've watched some of his old clips way back in the day. This isn't that old, and it's pretty hard to watch, and I find it almost impossible to defend him after seeing this. But let's watch this because he talks about, I'll just let him do the talking.
The women who were on stream were beautiful, but they didn't have a fucking clue what to say. They were saying all the wrong shit, man. Every day they were saying the wrong shit, and we were losing customers. Everything I was telling you earlier about wanting to be innocent. They're saying, oh, I've been here, I've been there. I'm like, shut the fuck up. You're talking to some dude. He doesn't want to hear where you've been. He knows you can't be a 10 talking about how you've been to Dubai to some fucking dude in Minnesota who's fat. He ain't gonna ever believe that he's gonna get you that way. You gotta lie to him. You gotta lie to him. She's like, lie and say what? Say that you've never been anywhere because you don't trust men. You can't find a man who's serious. Make him think that if he's serious about you, that nothing else matters. Wow, you gotta put a famoose on it. So I'm trying to teach these women, and the women kept fucking it up. So I said to them, it's like, you know what, fuck it. I'm taking over. So what I did is I unplugged their keyboards and plugged a new one in from me behind the screen. So the chicks would sit there and hit a keyboard that wasn't plugged in. And me and my brother, and eventually some staff I trained, would do all the talking. The girls were just famoosers, just laughing and doing this. Their titties out, and they were talking to fucking ice cold hustlers. We were taking their money, all of it. And they'd come and say, well, what kind of, all of it. We were fucking milking them dry. Women haven't got a clue how to famoose a dude. They don't have, because they rely on their looks. They don't have any of the intellect. They have no game, nothing.
There's some though. There's
nothing.
There's some.
Nah. You get a man with game and give him a female's body, a female avatar. He will fuck a guy up. I had these guys selling their houses, life savings, loans, all of it to me. Give me it all. So like, and it's basic shit, right? You'd have a guy.
Did you feel bad or no?
Fuck no. To give a solitary fuck.
All right, you can stop it there.
Did you tell
So that is horrendous to watch, and as a guy, I feel pretty bad. But it shows both sides of this. That the guys are being fleeced by dudes as well, and pretty bad dudes at that. I mean, yeah, it's hard to watch. What did you think when you guys saw that?
Yeah, well, firstly, Tate, I've watched some of his stuff over the time, and that's the end of it for me. That was a step too far. I didn't quite realise how far they went with fleecing guys. He said all of it. So there's that part of it, but yeah.
And his views on the women too.
Totally.
I think is hugely misguided.
Both the misogynistic part, but then the just the seediness of the way they've gone about especially emotionally extorting people.
Vulnerable, lonely people.
Vulnerable, lonely people, yeah. So, yeah. Not a fan.
I've never really been a fan of Andrew Tate. I've always thought that he's probably more toxic to the world than he is good. I think that the reason that someone like Andrew Tate has risen to such prominence is because the opposite end of the spectrum is going so far. Men are becoming a little bit more unsure of their roles in society because of all the the things that you hear on the news, and you know things like political correctness, feminism, social justice, modern dating and relationships, body positivity and fitness. Like, he's talking up about all these things, and I think people are getting a little bit lost one way, and so he's rising up on the back of those things. And people are, he's borderline funny sometimes. Like, you listen to him,
He is
take
funny
the piss
sometimes.
out of haters, and you're like, this guy's actually funny. He's witty. He's smart. But yeah, I don't think.
And his new message to the world is, I empower young men, get them to the gym and all that. And you can't not. It's very hard not to agree with his new stuff now that he's super rich, but his past is kind of undeniably there. But I think for proper, I think there's OnlyFans creators that are disappointed to see that, because I don't think that's representative of the entire platform in any way as well. So it's just important that we don't sort of. I thought, it's easy to just get polarized by someone like Andrew and go, that's the whole industry.
He's obviously selling, through controversy. Yeah, you can see that, but in my view, it's quite disgusting the way he comes across. He looked like an evil character. I took all their money. They're taking out loans.
He looks like Satan,
they're
right?
selling houses. Did you feel bad? No, not at all. Like, that's sociopathic kind of behavior, if you ask me. It's odd, but at the same time, there's very, very lonely people out there that are on the back end of this and thinking that it's really that woman on the other side. Yeah. And I did a little bit of research in a Men's Health magazine article that came out, and they were asking why are people, men specifically, obviously, are using OnlyFans. And they were saying things like, I want the money to go directly to the producer, to the creators, not sleazy porn producers. I found that quite interesting, right? So they're cutting out the middleman.
Do you believe that? They're just like virtue signaling.
No.
It's all about the girls.
Honestly, OnlyFans takes 20%, right? That's how it works. They keep 80% and 20%. To be honest with you, I don't think that's bad for the creator. I think it's going to be
definitely
like Booking.com and Airbnb in the future, and I think those commission rates will increase. And I did some calculations on what that increase would be, and just an increase of 5% would add about $150 million to the bottom line, which is big numbers. But then another comment was, if you consume it and can afford it, consider directly paying for it, which I found quite interesting. But my favorite one out of them all was they also mentioned things like the personalization of OnlyFans and the one-to-one interaction, because obviously it makes a lonely person feel good, right, if they're not being spoken to by many people throughout the day. And one guy said, as an example, there are 0 videos on Pornhub of a woman screaming the name Obadiah. So obviously,
They're filling a niche.
They're filling a niche, right? And I just want to say that's interesting, and thank you for your comments, Obadiah.
Eric, what do you think? What do you think about this being such a big growing trend, and young men, boys spending more time engaging with women, or the opposite sex for that matter? There's men on OnlyFans as well, and whatnot. What do you think of that as an issue? Do you think it's going to create an issue moving forward as well?
I think it will create an issue, but at the same time, I think to myself, you might as well get it done now, because in the future you're probably going to be speaking to a robot. That's the reality. It's not going to be a chatter anymore. It's not going to be a real person, even though it's probably some guy in Africa or in India that's you're chatting with. But at the same time, that's where we're heading, I think. But what do you do? Do you go and get your hit on a porn site, as an example, if that's what you're looking for, or do you go and try and get a little bit more deep and meaningful connection? Like, I did some research on average time, and average time on the site on OnlyFans was 5 minutes and 15 seconds, which I was very, very surprised about. Obviously James skews that number a little bit, but overall, I thought
down or up?
definitely down. So, but I thought people would be on there for longer.
I just think if more and more, and there is obviously a problem with loneliness, and since COVID that's probably been compounded and whatnot, but I think if more and more users are starting to use these platforms, then in the real world, call it, I think less and less men would be approaching beautiful women and saying hello. So I just think there's probably a real opportunity to be a purple cow out in person and go up to women and say hello, because they're probably getting less people saying hello to them these days because everyone's just, heading online when they're lonely.
Greg, I'd be interested in your take, because for those who don't know Greg's our producer behind the camera back there, and he's a little younger than us, and in his circle of influence, you're a photographer outside of here, and you do know some of these creators and women. What's their take? Like, how are they feeling? I mean, obviously they have an opinion about Andrew Tate, but what is their view on being an OnlyFans creator?
Yeah, it's pretty wild sitting there listening to Andrew Tate brag about emotionally extorting and manipulating vulnerable men, when that's the exact thing that his fan base and a majority of men who hate OnlyFans and OnlyFans creators, that's what they accuse OnlyFans creators of doing. And they sit there and say that, these women don't have any skills. They don't have to put any effort. They just sit there and take the easy route and, just rake in money from, vulnerable and desperate men, which is just a complete false narrative. And I think a lot of that is actually driven by people like, first of all, Andrew Tate, but Iggy Azalea and celebrities that have huge names coming onto the platform and making insane amounts of money because they already have millions of followers and things like that. So their fans come over and they're like, oh, wow, I can see her naked, whatever. And they pay $25 a month or what have you. And they sit there and they get, barely more than they're getting on Instagram, and they get really jaded and upset about the platform and go, wow, this is ridiculous. I mean, realistically on this platform, unless you're in the top 3 to 1% or above, you are not making even enough money to live full time, solely off of OnlyFans content creation. So first of all, I mean, a lot of the women that are below the 5%, which is, again, a vast majority, they are doing all the messaging and stuff like that themselves because they don't have the funds to sit there and outsource. And the people that are outsourcing that type of stuff is solely because they literally can't handle by themselves the amount of messages that they get. They're getting thousands of messages a day of people requesting things and stuff like that. So it's just not manageable. They're not sitting here like Andrew Tate being like, oh, I'm going to take this guy for all that he's worth and things like that. That's such a ridiculous and sociopathic view to take. So the fact that he's taking it and his fans are still defending him is so wild to me. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty wild. But like you were saying before, Adam, I think OnlyFans is just generally a better way to consume porn, and it's a more healthy way to do so. I mean, like you said, you get on here and you get to talk to these women and you get to see what they're like beyond just going onto Pornhub and watching these free clips and just watching them get railed. And then it's like, oh yeah, they're just viewed as a sexual object. Here you get to see them doing real things. There's girls on there that their whole niche is they don't even, do any porn-based stuff. They just sit there naked and clean houses and things like that. There's so many niches on the platform that are just so much more healthy and are such a better way for young men to consume porn and get their rocks off without it just being oh, here's a girl, watch her get run on, a train run on her by 6 guys and stuff like that. It's just a very unrealistic and unhealthy view of sex, I think, if you're a young person, new to that area. And then there's the whole take, like you were saying before, Eric, which Adam made a joke about, is that the real viewpoint of people? But I actually do share that viewpoint. And that's, I think it's so much better to be paying these creators directly. A lot of these women are on here because, maybe they have dabbled in the porn space before. And this is a way for them to take control of their livelihood. And, you know, they are in control of everything. They get to put out the content that they want to put out. They get to say the things that they want to say. And it's just, it's really empowering, I think, for them to take that into their own hands, because historically the porn industry is just super toxic, super sleazy. There's a lot of horror stories that I've heard personally from that space that just, they make your skin crawl. So the fact that these women are allowed to take control of their creation and their content and their, you know, their sexual space is just, there's not really many downsides for it for me. So yeah, it is a deep and complex issue.
It is. It's a lot more complex the more you think about it.
Yeah.
And it became like, I'm going to just circle back before we close this off and ask the question to you guys. What would you do if you found out your wife or long-term partner used to have an OnlyFans before you? How would you feel about it? Because this is a real conversation I had with my wife, and I'll tell you my answer in a minute, but I'd love to hear your feedback.
You can go.
Now everyone's like, oh shit, I don't want to say anything.
I'm single. I'm single. I'm probably going to find my next girlfriend on there. So, you know, I'm open. I couldn't care less.
You couldn't care less. What about you, mate?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not. I think it's all depending on the type of content that was put on there. But yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about it. I don't know. I don't think it'd bother me too much. But yeah, I'm not.
I think I'd be a little bit devastated, depending on what content.
Yeah.
If it was just, you know, bikini shots or something, that would be fine. But if it
Yeah.
was, you know, full blown, it would definitely have an impact. I would feel.
Yeah, I think the point there is to what level. If it's, as Greg said before, if it's just a, you know, a
Home alone, no other partner with them, on their own,
Yeah,
doing
and
videos for guys and texting guys and photos for guys.
Yeah, I mean, again, if it's like not too much more than their Instagram, you know, girls got to eat.
I think the reality is, though, it is probably a little bit more than Instagram, right? Like,
Oh, it is. When you get into the DMs, I'm talking, you know what's going on in the
Yeah.
DMs. Guys aren't paying for nothing, right? Like, I'll tell you my answer, right? Like, when I lived in Los Angeles, there's a lot of people there doing it tough, right? They're there for Hollywood and they're there to make it. And, you know, I had the privilege of going there with some skills as an entrepreneur and a business that started off pretty well. But I was very, very slow to judge people who were making ends meet in other ways, because it's tough. It's their body. They're in a bedroom on their own. They're safe. They're alone. And I said to my wife, I said, look, hon, you know, like, if you were coming up and that was the best option available to you, you had a young son like she did, and you were taking photos or doing that, and it was all in the confines of your own house, and there was nobody else there, I actually would, I don't really have a judgment about it, because I think, yeah, it's their life, you know. I don't know, it's different, but I think we should be slow to judge. You know, everybody's got different backgrounds and stuff.
Very true, and I guess it's, you know, better than some of the alternatives, like you said, the safety and comfort of their own home and things like that. Yeah, and I think, like Greg was just saying, like a lot of these women are approaching it as a business, and they're just trying to make a career out of it and get a start. So, you know, if they've gone into it with that mindset.
And with the bank they could pull down, it's like pretty hard to say, no, you shouldn't do that. It's a tough one.
Exactly. Why shouldn't they be able to?
I see a gap in the market for financial coaches, OnlyFans creators.
Yeah,
honestly, the money that these people are making, right? All they got to do is work a handful of years, invest wisely. They wouldn't have to work again a day again in their lives.
And I'm sure at a certain level they do. A lot of the really big ones would have money managers and agents and stuff anyway. But there you have it, guys. OnlyFans, you know, interesting world that we're living in. It's certainly opened our eyes, and we will be unsubscribing shortly. I think we've still got a month to go on Iggy, so let's just see how that goes. Hey there. I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. If you want to watch another clip, click here. Or if you want to see the full episode, click here. Bye for now.